Life community. Troy Snyder here. Hope you guys are doing well. Again, just want to come to you with a few little helpful thoughts and tips regarding treatment of sex addiction, betrayal trauma, and the repair in the relationship. So, when you get on the journey, right, of recovery, healing, and repair, it's a journey. It's going to take time. You're going to go through some ups and downs, and maybe downs and ups, and it's going to be that way, especially early on, until there's some good recovery of sobriety, there's some good healing, there's some time of consistency. And there's a renewal of the mind and the heart, and then it gets better. It doesn't always turn out easy all the time, but it gets better. We see that. So the first early stages of treatment are difficult. And so what I wanted to bring to you today is when it gets tough, what do you do? Right? What do you do when it gets tough? And so I want to give you a couple things that I kind of try to teach my clients to do when it gets tough. So I use this kind of little concept: awareness, identify, and then act or respond, however you want to say that. I know acting out has a negative connotation, but I need to be aware of what's going on in me, right? So that awareness is, like, I use the terminology, take an emotional thermometer and stick it in and going, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling tired, right? I'm aware. And typically, when we have negative emotions like that, that's what tends to take us into a position. If I said to you, I'm really anxious today about a conversation that I'm going to have, right now, I'm aware that I'm anxious, and that anxiety is because of a conversation I'm going to have. And we might unpack what that conversation is to show why I'm so anxious about that. I don't typically say, like, oh, I'm excited about the conversation, because most positive feelings we just kind of roll with and go with, but the negative ones have a big impact on us. So I teach my clients, hey, be aware. Maybe 2 to 4 times a day, sit down and write down kind of how you're feeling at that moment. That begins that training process. In the morning, I'm feeling X. In the afternoon, I'm feeling Y. In the end, I'm feeling Z, right? So you can kind of just get in that practice, and you can use a feelings wheel or a feelings chart or a feelings face that you can get online or all over the place to start kind of helping you be aware, and give you that sort of vocabulary. But that awareness is, uh, I'm doing this. I'm feeling something. I'm connected with it, and I need to respond to that. Okay, so I'm aware of my feelings, and then I can identify those feelings, and I can also identify what's causing those feelings. And most of us in the recovery world know the IFAB statements. I feel because, like I was telling you earlier, I feel anxious because of a conversation I'm going to have. All right, now I'm able to logically think that out. The next question that comes is, well, what's the conversation about, or what are you anxious? What particularly about that conversation are you anxious about? Now I have something to work with. If I don't do that, then all I'm left with is the feeling, the uncomfortableness, it could be angst, it could be anger, it could be sadness. And then eventually, if we don't do something, we use the term, if we don't respond, we're going to react, right? So this staying inside, boiling up, it may drive us to act out. And there's a whole other little section here you think about, is that we make attachments. So when I feel X, I do Y, right? So some people would say, like, peanut butter and jelly, right? People kind of, those go together. So in an addict's world, sometimes it's like, I feel overwhelmed and I act out. It becomes that attachment. And we're trying to break that attachment apart, not only by being able to say, hey, this is wrong, this is sinful, don't go there, put boundaries up and guard against that, but be aware of what's going on inside of you. Why are you feeling overwhelmed? Why are you feeling sad? Can you identify that you're feeling that? Can you be aware and identify? And then we can decide what we do with that. So for instance, so we're aware, we're identifying, and then we're learning to respond. If I'm anxious about a conversation I'm going to have, just by the very nature of me being able to verbalize and be aware and identify and communicate why to somebody, my anxiety level can go down because I've brought it into the light. I've bared that out to somebody else, right? That could be enough just to through prayer, through conversation with friends, through journaling, getting that stuff out. Do not leave it inside, but getting that stuff out will really be helpful. But I can take some other action steps as well, right? So I feel anxious because of this conversation. I can talk to a friend and they can ask me, okay, so who is this conversation with? What is it about? What makes that anxious? Is there any good in it? Right? So you can have someone kind of dialogue with you. I can do that in my journal. I can write that kind of stuff out and, be aware more specifically of what's causing it. And then as I go through that, there may be some things that conversation is not going to go well. Maybe it is I'm going to get let go, or maybe it is I'm going to pay a fine, or maybe it is that there's going to be some consequences for something I did. We're not saying be aware and identify your feelings and figure it out so that everything will go well, but you're having to do this so you can face it and not just turn inward and act out, right? So you want to go and learn to respond to those circumstances. And in having that, in this case, having that conversation and trusting ultimately the Lord, what's going to happen with that and moving through that. Well, we all have this stuff. We have this stuff going on every day. And historically and traditionally, for the addict or the wounded person, they don't know how to do that well. And what they've been taught to do with emotions is maybe they haven't been taught about what emotions are or the value of them. Maybe they weren't given a voice to be able to talk about those emotions. And so what they had to do is they had to keep that all inside. Imagine an 8-year-old who's feeling anxious about whether my dad is going to come home angry or drunk and really kind of not knowing what's going to come in the door in that experience. And so what does that person end up doing as a little kid with that stuff? They hide. They let the anxiety continue to ride. They have nobody to talk to. They don't think they do, but they don't talk to anybody. So early on, they begin to learn, ooh, when I experience X, I hide. I go away. And honestly, as a kid, that might be the right response. That may be the right healthy response for protection purposes. But when you grow up and you um, are in life and you're in that adult, there's a healthy response that you can relearn or retrain in, and that's kind of what we're talking about. So again, back to working with clients, just like when it gets hard, what is it? It's the emotion. What's causing the hardness, and then what can you do to respond to work through that hardness? And all of that is to also not repeat or reinforce the old ways or the old acting out behavior, because we know in addiction, if you continue to go down that path, you get the momentary high, but it continues to reinforce that old pattern. And so we got to stay away from that. So listen, recovery, healing, repair is hard at times. And it's okay. You want to surrender that. You want to take some of these skills and do something with that. And I can tell you that this is not only good for you, but it'll be good for your relationship. It'll be good for your kids. It'll be good for a lot of other things as you go forward in life. Hope that helps.